Good morning and welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Social Services Scrutiny Committee on the 14th of October 2025. I am Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we move on to the next agenda item, please note that this meeting will be recorded. Can you ensure that all your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? When asked to raise your hand, can members who are virtually viewing this meeting raise your electronic hand, and members in the room raise your physical hand. For those members virtually viewing this meeting, please can you keep the chat function for urgent IT issues and not for questions or comments. I wish to remind members signing in remotely of their legal obligation to have their cameras switched on during the meeting, please, in order to be seen and heard while participating in council business. We are not due to have a fire drill, so should the alarm sound during the meeting, please make your way to the nearest exit. Obviously, you on screen don't have to do that. For the purpose of the recording, please can we go around the table and introduce yourself, those in the room. Alan?
Oh, I do apologise. Councillor Alan Llewellyn, Cabinet Member for Housing and Community Safety and Deputy Leader of the Council.
Pamela Chivers, Democratic Services Officer.
Sharon?
Councillor Sharon Freegard, Councillor for the Talbot Ward.
Councillor Suzanne Paddison, I'm substituting today for a member that can't make it.
We go straight on to agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? If any members have declarations of interest, please indicate now.
Can I come in there, Chair? Chair, I think that Councillor Stephanie Grimshaw has a declaration.
Okay.
Thank you. I work for Welsh Women's Aid and I will be referring to a report written by Welsh Women's Aid, but I wasn't involved in the report and I don't work in that department.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll go straight on to agenda item 3, which is to consider the items scrutiny forward work programme. Today we've only actually got one, which is item 3A, which is the Western Bay Drugs Commission, turning the tide, steering a new hope towards hope and recovery. So we're just going to go like straight in. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to councillors' questions first, which is I don't normally do. But because obviously what we're going to do then is ask for officers to explain what they've done, because in this report, it's an excellent report. So I think we need to thank Professor Wolf Livingston and the commission members on it. I found it very interesting. I can't say there's any good in it. It's only the bad and the ugly. But what we will be asking is for officers to go through the recommendations of what has been done to date on them and what is the plan going forward as well also. So I'm going to start taking the questions first, but firstly, as the director, anything he wants to add?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair, and apologies I can't be in the room. I've got whatever the cold or whatever it is that's going around. I do want to spread it to everyone in that room, so apologies for that. I just wondered whether, Chair, it'd be helpful before you go into questions if I could just do a really brief introduction. I'll introduce the people that we've got online so that the committee knows who we've got from the area planning board. If that's helpful, Chair, it'll just take me a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and Andrew, could you just give us a background, just a brief background on why this commission was actually requested in the beginning as well, please?
Sure, excellent. Okay, Chair, thanks very much. So first of all, if I just say my name's Andrew Jarrett, I'm the Director of Social Services, Housing and Community Safety here in the council. I also sit on the area planning board and have done for the last 2.5 years. So that's my role. If I just introduce the team that we've brought together today to answer your questions, committee. So if I just go around and ask them to introduce themselves. So first on my screen, I've got Julia.
Hi, good morning, Chair. Julia Jenkins. I'm the Principal Officer for Substance Use in Neath, Talbot. So I look after the Area Planning Board support team and all the work of the Area Planning Board.
Thanks, Julia. And then we've got Mark from the police. Mark.
Morning, everyone. Mark Kavanagh, Superintendent. I'm Head of Communities and Partnerships for Swansea, Neath, Talbot Policing. I'm also the Force Lead for Substance Use, and I've been a member of this APB now for the last 2 years.
Thanks, Mark. Then I've got Shelley.
Shelley Howard, Head of Housing and Communities.
Thanks, Shelley. Then I've got a representative from the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, Lisa.
Thank you, Borough. Good morning, Lisa Shipton. I'm Head of Commissioned Services for South Wales Police and Crime Commissioner's Office.
Thanks, Lisa. You sound a bit like I sound, I think. So I hope you get better soon. Now I've got Anharad.
Hello, I'm Anharad Metcalf. I'm the Transformation Programme Manager and responsible for transforming services across Western Bay Area Planning Board.
Okay, so that's the representation that we brought together to answer your questions today, committee. Before you, in Turning the Tide, you have a very important report for us. It concerns the Western Bay Area Planning Board and the delivery of its services. That area covers Swansea and Neath Port Talbot, so it's a region that you would know nowadays as West Glamorgan, but it's still called the Western Bay Area Planning Board. In 2019, a critical incident was declared in Western Bay in response to the high rates of drug-related deaths and near-fatal overdoses in the region. A part of the 5-point plan to come out of the critical incident was to set up an expert advisory group. Between Welsh Government and the Western Bay Area Planning Board, this developed into a call to set up an independent drug commission to review and advise on the approach to treatment services across the region. This commission was set up then in December 2022, and after a huge amount of work by commission members, has produced a report called Turning the Tide, which is before you today. As I say, it's a really important report for us. It is a critical report. There's no getting around that. And it highlights the significant areas where the partnership could and should do better. The Area Planning Board parties and partners have fully accepted all of the findings of the report before you today, and have already started to make the necessary changes to improve service delivery across the region. And we'll talk you through a bit more about that as we go through today and a bit more of the detail of what's in the report, Chair. But that's my introduction. I was going to hand over to Anharad to say a few things, but if you want to go to questions, Chair, I'm happy with that.
Anharad, what do you wish to say? Is that going to be the recommendations, or is there just another slight brief you'd want to give? Because I want to keep the recommendations until after councillors have asked their questions.
Yeah, so I was just going to go through some of the key findings of the report, just a summary, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so, I'm assuming everyone's had an opportunity to read through the report, but I thought it would be useful just to summarise some of the key findings. So you'll see from the report there are gaps in service provision. There's recognition is required that drug use is often a response to difficult life circumstances, and there are barriers in accessing necessary services as we have a slow to adapt system that is overly focused on historical practices. And there has been progress, but we know that we need to really transform our services across to ensure that we address needs of those in rural areas and for those with co-occurring needs. What we also see is that there's a lack of integration between substance use services and primary care. The Commission strongly recommends that we enhance the role of GP practices and community pharmacies in providing treatment for people. There are data limitations. The report points to ongoing challenges with data collection and sharing, which can often hamper our monitoring and evaluation of interventions. We see that there's continued criminalisation of drugs possession for personal use, and that is seen as a barrier to engagement with health services and contributes to potential stigma. We recognise that there is a significant threat to community safety from organised crime groups and drug supply. The report also notes the issues of social inequality. So there are challenges for us in terms of that social and economic inequalities and the support that's needed for communities who are experiencing that, and also the challenges in terms of the slow pace of legislative reform, which is impeding the implementation of progressive approaches to drug policy. So there are findings for Welsh Government from the report. The report did also note that we absolutely need to involve people with lived and living experience of drug use in shaping services. The report does note some initial progress, particularly in appointing a participation and engagement officer and engaging individuals in consultations and workshops. So we really need to ensure that this is at the heart of everything we do going forward. The report does highlight there is a commitment to change and transformation. It notes that local leaders, staff and communities are eager for real change. It does highlight that there are dedicated and passionate workforce and there is a commitment to staff working in drug treatment and support services, but that does not negate the systemic challenges that many staff describe experiencing. There are examples of good practice. So there are some GPs who are collaborating and there are pharmacies who are engaged in shared care models. But as I've mentioned, we really need to focus on developing that opportunity. And there is momentum for cultural change. So there is a growing recognition of the need for cultural change at all levels. And the report does note that the groundwork has been laid for this shift, and there are already green shoots of change visible in the system. So we are in a position where we're beginning to make some real change, and this report will be fundamental in supporting that change. So I'd like to stop there because I don't want to, I know you want to move to questions, but I just thought it was important to share some of those key areas.
Brilliant. Thank you, Angharad. If we go straight into questions then, Councillor Grimshaw, please.
Sorry, I couldn't find my screen then. I was looking at my questions. Thank you very much for that. I've got 3 questions, if that's okay. The report highlights that some individuals are turning to drugs as a way of coping with wider challenges such as housing insecurity. Can you outline how we are working with departments beyond social services or plan to work beyond social services to address underlying issues that help prevent people from resorting to the substance use in the first place? Do you want me to give my 3 questions at once, or?
Yeah, hold on. Angharad, if you want to come back, or no, Stephanie, if you ask your 3 questions straight away, probably it's Angharad that'll be answering the 3 back to you. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, that's no problem at all. And then the second question is, the report notes that whilst predominantly service users are men, there are a group of women that are dealing with gender specific issues. And it notes that in recommendation 3. I just want to understand specifically what are these gender specific issues. I've got a feeling it might relate to my 3rd question. My 3rd question is a bit longer, so I hope that that's okay. Throughout the report, we see the use of the word sex work and sex workers. The All Wales operational group on sexually exploited women have actually raised previously in a consultation response that substance misuse and alcohol dependency can actually shape pathways into sexual exploitation. The report also highlights that survivors of adult sexual exploitation are often coerced into selling sex to finance a family's or a partner's substance misuse. I'm just really concerned at the chosen language in in the report, and this report doesn't mention adult sexual exploitation, modern slavery, or human trafficking at all as potential risks and impact factors, particularly as we know that the use of substances like drug and alcohol can also impact a person's ability to consent. So I wanted to understand what work is being done to ensure that those at risk or experiencing adult sexual exploitation in Neath Port Talbot are identified and supported.
And Harriet, I'm assuming it's you.
Yeah, okay. So if I go with the first question, it's going to be like a memory test now. But I think you asked about the co-occurring need and what we're doing on a wider basis. So, you know, you're absolutely right. The Commission calls for that integrated response that ensures that mental health, co-occurring needs, and the whole experience of a person, you know, they're likely to be experiencing many issues, including housing also. And absolutely, you know, the partnership of the APB includes our health board colleagues, it includes housing representatives, and therefore we need to ensure that our overall strategies and approaches are aligned. We've recently done a partnership development day in which we looked at all of the recommendations in the Drug Commission report, and we asked our leaders across the services how they would work together to ensure that each organisation takes that whole system approach and considers the pathways for people into accessing the support that they need. So I think in terms of a senior leadership level, that engagement and that support is absolutely there to make sure that that service is seamless for people. In terms of our work as an area planning board, we have a co-occurring strategy that has been produced and is led by the health board, but is contributed to and collaborated on by all partners. And that is really fundamental to ensure that we have clear actions that are in the strategy to improve access to mental health services for people with substance use need. So it really is around that early assessment and support into services. In addition to that, the APB has a complex needs project that has been running for two years now, the CUTCH project. So that is a trauma-informed, trauma-enhanced model, psychology-led service for people with needs and substance use and mental health needs, so to ensure that they get that really specific intervention. And that all of that forms part of our new alliance model. So that's going to be a newly commissioned service approach. So rather than us piloting separate trauma-informed services, we expect all of our service model to be trauma-informed and trauma-enhanced. So anyone coming into our services are offered that support. In addition, going back to some of the housing related support needs, our housing partners are involved in decision making within the Alliance. They're part of our panel, and what we've asked our new service model to incorporate is absolutely that whole system approach. So we're not just thinking about the substance use need, we're thinking about the housing need of the person, and we're thinking about any co-occurring needs they might have. And in addition, we now have been able to access housing support grant funding to come into the Alliance from both Swansea Council and Neath Port Talbot Council. So it's around ensuring that we're able to pool our budgets to commission whole system approach services for people. So I think that's probably a summary of some of the key areas where there's join up for mental health and housing. I think that was the first question. The second question was around gender specific issues, and you mentioned around the experience of women in the system, and I think understanding the points from the Commission around understanding gender sensitive approaches to substance use and the experience of women in the system is really important to inform how we meet how our services are structured. So lots of the work that we're doing is to listen to people with lived experience. Through the process over the last 2 years, we've run a rapid access project which has been really specifically designed to outreach to women who might be vulnerable, who might be involved in being coerced, and engage them into treatment and support. Much of that is around that accessibility as well of our system. So for women who may be main caregivers, and thinking about, you know, enabling them to access treatment at a time that works for them. It's also about drawing them into services. So I think lots of the work that we're doing is to really understand and design our services around the needs of women. That's very clear from the specification that we've put out to the market. It's absolutely designed with women, for women. And we've been really clear that our services need to consistently think about innovative practice and how they ensure that women are supported. In terms of the last question, I think you asked about modern slavery, and I think I'd probably come to Mark around the work of policing in terms of engaging and ensuring that women who might be at risk of entering the criminal justice system, or women who are vulnerable and need to be supported in terms of the risk of modern slavery. I think probably Mark might want to say a little bit about that.
Thanks, Angharad. So, yeah, we've got a number of, areas of governance which will support the area planning board meetings. So things like the serious organised crime boards. We've got violence against women and girls prevention boards. All of those will feed into the work of the area planning board. So we're trying to take a problem-solving approach with this, recognising that many women who were drawn into criminality and substance use are actually victims of adult exploitation, as you articulated in your question, Councillor. And I think it's about making sure that, when women do come to police notice in those circumstances, we take a more holistic approach, making sure that we're flagging up to the Home Office that there is evidence of human trafficking and modern slavery at play here. And even though we are dealing with the criminal offence of possession of drugs, that actually, should we be penalising women and girls who fall into that category, should we be treating them as victims and taking more of a victim-led approach and then signposting them to services? That's certainly the approach we're taking with child victims of exploitation. So children who are brought into custody in possession of large amounts of drugs who have clearly been exploited into things like county line criminality. We're taking that same approach with women as well. And so by exploring diversion schemes like the Women's Pathfinder and things like that, we can actually, put measures in place to help rehabilitate women who are drawn into a lifestyle of substance use, recognising there's a much bigger picture. And a lot of the people we do encounter are actually victims of domestic abuse as well, where the actual the taking of the drugs is a byproduct of having been victimized for such a long time, where they feel like they've got nowhere else to turn. So I think definitely that victim-led approach, but making sure that our governance processes in policing complement the work of the area planning board. And I think this is where information sharing is going to become very, very important over the next couple of years. I think if you look across the governance landscape of all of the different forums that exist within Neath and Port Talbot, we're talking, by and large, we're talking about the same people. They're straddling across a number of different threat areas. So we've got different groups to discuss modern slavery, serious organised crime, domestic abuse. They're all very separate forums. So I think a challenge for us as an area planning board is making sure that information about people is shared across the various meetings, so that we're all pulling in the same direction and working in the same way, to give victims the very best possible support that we can.
Thank you, Mark. If I can just come back to Stephanie, have you got any questions you want to come back to now? Because obviously what I've got now is Chris. Chris, do you have the question relating to Stephanie's question, or is it a new question?
No, it's the one I asked previously when I mentioned
All right, okay. All right, I leave the officers answer Stephanie first then, okay? So Stephanie, have you got anything you want to come back and ask to now?
Yeah, thank
before
you.
I bring you in?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just a bit concerned about the way it's been dealt with in the report, because the report says that, you know, women have experienced gender sensitive issues, but it doesn't say what those issues are. So I really feel like it's been kind of coasted over a bit inappropriately. I'm really glad to hear from the police, particularly, that they're moving away from the criminalisation of survivors, because it is a massive, massive problem. But again, the report talks about sex workers and employment status, which is really, really problematic. And I understand that, you know, on the ground there are those there, and we've also got the Swan Project as well that's really, really good. But we cannot be approaching these survivors as, you know, sex workers, particularly when we're looking at the context of drug and substance misuse as well. So I'm really not happy, I'm afraid, with the language used in the report. And some might see it as just language, but actually, when we acknowledge them as adult sexual exploitation victims or survivors, it makes sure that they're dealt with properly, and we're looking deeper rather than, oh, it's someone in a job, you know, with substance misuse. So I think it's been really, really badly mishandled within the report.
Julia, if I bring you in now.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Grimshaw. Really interesting points, and I'm glad that you've brought that to our attention. You know, it is something we can now address through our development of our APB strategy and delivery plan that we're going to use to take forward to implement all of these recommendations. It is something we can have open and honest discussions with as a partnership and with our service providers around, you know, the framing of the words. And, you know, what I wanted to really just say was, I think it's important to understand that, you know, people who have suffered exploitation often are very stigmatized, and they have fear of disclosing what's happened to them, you know, when they come into service, because of that stigma and, you know, a fear of criminality. So I think that is something we need to address, and we will address as part of our new services going forward, because they all have to be trauma informed, and that's what we've put in our service specification that we want you know, our providers to think about. So it is really important, and thank you for raising that, and we will definitely take that back into the APB. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Grimshaw, you want to come back?
Yeah, just to finish off, don't worry, I won't ask another question, but I am just concerned that, you know, we're using this report for the recommendations within the report, and those recommendations aren't trauma informed when it comes to adult sexual exploitation. So thank you.
Okay, just going to bring in Cabinet Member now.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks, Stephanie, for the questions. If I could refer first of all to the first question, so it's, you know, the crossover between what's specifically in the report and the work that's been done with the APB, and the wider social issues around housing, you know, and other you know, social issues in our communities. And I think that, you know, there's obviously a crossover there in terms of taking things forward to ensure the success of our recently adopted housing strategies, because, you know, a lot of the work that to be undertaken under those strategies, so, you know, we are going to need the support of all our colleagues across the authority, plus other agencies, because, you know, addressing the housing and homelessness needs of people, or housing and homelessness situations of people with very complex needs is a key part of that strategy, or group of strategies. And also, of course, you know, for us as a local authority, all the work that we're undertaking in terms of economic development, valleys and town strategies and so on, are actually relevant to make sure that, you know, people's economic circumstances can be improved, so that, you know, some of the social disadvantages that they face are also mitigated. You know, as we know, the whole issue of using substances is very complex. It's not solely to do with deprivation, because you know, it can relate to quite a lot of affluences as well. But you know, the work that we're trying to do in terms of building communities and improving the economy, can't do that in isolation as an authority. Obviously, we've got to do it in partnership with governments at different levels and development agencies and so on. But there is a real crossover there in terms of improving lives and communities. I'll briefly refer to the question about wording, because I suppose I sit here with two or more hats, because I have been a member of the commission as well. So something I would like to do, after we've had the whole of the scrutiny, is to be able to share the link to the recording with the partnership, the commission members. The commission has finished, it's produced its report. But it is actually still circulating some of the questions that were raised at the partnership day where the report was launched. So those the commission itself, will no longer be meeting. It's delivered its final report. I'll share the link so that members, if they wish to.
It would have been nice if some of them were here today.
Well, I am, I suppose.
I know. You're always in there.
Well, it's a point. I mean, I don't know whether I'm, to be honest, that's the point. I don't know how the meeting was structured in terms of issuing any invitations or anything, but possibly one of the chairs or two or both chairs might have, if they'd received an invitation, I guess would have been happy to attend. Certainly several of the commission members were present at the partnership day when there were also questions and answers. So, but of course, the key part, is what happens to take things forward,
and that's what we're going to focus on today.
And obviously, the key people from our point of view there, and Harald and Julia and other members that are working, Mark Kavanagh and so on, other members that are working with the APB. But I'm sure if an invitation has been extended, and sure.
I'm sure we'll have more meetings about this going forward.
Well,
we'll invite them.
It's going to be the long haul, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, if I can just bring Councillor Pregard in then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, my first question is, when we had the report, did we do a written response to the report? And if we did, where is it? And could members have a copy of it? And could you explain what was in it if we did do the report? I've got some other questions as well, Chair. I don't know whether you want me to.
Yeah, you can ask them on now.
Right. I acknowledge that what's important is how we move forward, how we facilitate change, and how we have the tools to do that. So I was wondering, what obstacles do you envisage in implementing the recommendations of the report? And in terms of working together within the APB, do we have the necessary powers to implement these recommendations? And I would ask today, have we got a representative from Health? And if not, why not? And how do we plan to implement the changes within the APB? Because on page, I think it's page 61 and 62, it refers to independent partners. We just grab that page. We've got on recommendation 4, we're talking about reciprocal partnerships with all those affected by their own or someone else's drug use. I was wondering about funding streams here. How is this all going to be funded, and who is going to be funding it? And it also talks about, on the next page, which is page 62, about an independent learning partner should be considered to design and deliver an appropriate framework. Now, I'm not sure, you may have answered some of these questions if we've already got an action plan up and running in regards to the response to this report. But if you could clarify and expand on that and what that means. And once again, it will go back to funding. Now, at the end of the report, it talks about Welsh Government and how we should have had some kind of response or workings within 3 months of this report. So what comments have we had from Welsh Government on this, and where are we with their response to all this, really? And I may have other questions following on from
after the recommendations
as well. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who's answering? This one?
So I think
Um,
Julia's got, you know, I think Julia can sort of go through with you a summary of the actions and activities in terms of the response to the report. So I'll hand over to Julia.
Yeah, thanks, Angharad. So yeah, if you could just give me a few minutes just to talk about the next steps that we've decided on as an area plan board and what we've been doing in response to us acknowledging this report and the APB receiving it. So I think it's important that we just outline what our immediate next steps are and then talk a bit more about our strategy and action plan. So firstly, we are continuing to implement our new service model via our commissioning in an alliance. So the specification of this model addresses many of the core recommendations that are related to service delivery within the within the report. So we're well underway to be doing that, and we are on track for the new model to be implemented by the 1st of April. So you will all have received information on what that model is. There was a business case put before Scrutiny a little while back, so you'll know about the aspirations about what we want to achieve, an integrated model. So I know you mentioned about an action plan, Councillor, and work on that has been started. So a draft strategy was circulated for consultation a couple of months back. That was ahead of our partnership day, which we had on the 30th of September. So we wrote out to a range of key stakeholders, including people with lived experience, about what that plan should look like. And following the day, we've received feedback on the day. We're now revising and refining that action plan. Accompanying that will be a delivery plan, which will outline a series of measurable.
Julia,
Yeah,
can I
sorry.
just stop you there a minute? Who did the plan actually go out to? Not members, is it?
It went widely to all of our stakeholders on the APB, our partners. Members were consulted, some members who sit on the APB and the Regional Partnership Board. And
that's not for this committee though, to confirm. So I think it's clear that obviously when you're saying that it's been sent out, I'm not aware of it myself. So when you obviously are speaking about stakeholders and that, it doesn't actually come to us members, to my knowledge.
Okay, I'll take that on board. There will be further opportunities once we've refined that now for further comment before we agree and finalise the draft. So we will make sure that it is circulated widely to everybody. So we're co-producing that plan and it will be based on lived experience. We also want that plan to be formulated so that the APB can be held to account. So the APB has now accepted the report and is leading on implementing the recommendations. Also, immediate next steps will be to make sure we prepare for our next check-ins with yourselves as scrutiny committees and in Swansea with the Area Planning Board, Health Board and our other voluntary sector partners. So there'll be constant check-ins around that. Also, as part of this early work, we need to prioritise what our immediate actions should be, and we need to base that on urgency, feasibility and alignment with our wider strategic outcomes. So, you know, those are around reducing drug-related deaths and improving access to treatment. So there is a lot of work ongoing and it's further to do. In relation, I think there was a question around the governance and powers to implement all of this. So we've made lots of changes to the structure of the APB over the last 18 months or so. We have been through a lot of chairs. We've got some stability around that now. We've opened up our transparency around decision making. We've implemented new systems to do that. And we've got robust monitoring quarterly, and we also check in with both community safety partnerships, the meetings of the two PSBs, and we have now decided to have an annual partnership event to make that annual so we can review and check in progress. We're also obviously mentioning the really important operating model that we're commissioning, and we will ensure that we have accountability and we can have adaptable services. So we're also, as part of the Alliance, looking at developing an outcomes framework so that we make sure that the new model is delivering what it needs to. and what people have told us needs to happen. And these will be reviewed by our communities, and the governance will always remain under review and scrutiny to guarantee its effectiveness. In relation to collaboration, I think we all know working in partnership can be difficult, and we are spanning a lot of different regional partnerships, local partnerships, lots of different people involved. And I think the key to a successful response to this is to make sure that we are working collaboratively to implement the strategy and the action plan. So the Alliance has already fostered improved working relationships with the councils, the health board, police, voluntary sector, and alongside that, it does also provide a legal and contractual basis for which partners will operate. So I think that is a lot different to, the loose partnership we may have been working in before. So I think, that will give this legs. And I think, as mentioned before, we really need to listen to the voices of people who use our services. And as part of the Alliance, we've had several workshops. We've engaged with people, we've brought them into workshops. We've got people on our Lived Experience Alliance forum that's been established, who are on our commissioning panel. So they are fully integrated into the development of the service and the commissioning. I did scribble down all of your questions, Councillor. So I think you talked about funding as well.
Can I just ask Julia? I did ask, did we provide a written response following the report?
A written response to
the Commission.
To the Commission. Sorry, yeah. You're breaking up. I can't quite hear you.
Sorry. Did we provide a written response back to the Commission following the report, in response to the report?
Shall I come in there? Yeah, shall I come in there, Julia? Because I think you're breaking up. So we haven't provided any formal response to the report. So the APB commissioned, in essence, commissioned the Commission to provide us with a report for us to be able to work from those recommendations. And we agreed with the Commission chairs and with the Commission that the process for us was to receive the report, and we would have a collaborative partnership day where we would receive the report, we would listen to the recommendations, and that included leaders across the public services, it included staff working in services, it included people with lived experience, and fundamentally that was the first point at which everyone was brought together to discuss and understand and really talk about, what do our next steps look like. So that only happened on the 30th of September. So that was only 2 weeks ago. What we are doing now from that is bringing together all of the feedback, integrating it into a developing strategy. I think what is really important was that we didn't just respond with a list of actions that we think as an APB are this is what we're going to do and this resolves the problem, because what we know is that we need a long-term strategic plan. We need partners to really engage and understand and be part of the change process, because changing culture, doesn't just happen with a very quick response. So we could have done something very quickly. What we're actually doing is saying we want to make a really meaningful change and ensure that our strategy and the actions within it have been fully consulted on. So the next stage, as Julia mentioned, is that we will bring together all of the feedback from that partnership day, from leaders, from people working in services, from people with lived experience. And then we think about, what are the underlying actions, who do they need to be assigned to, who will take accountability for them. And that really gives us the basis for which we can move forward with. Our initial suggestion is that plan will be an annual plan. So we, at the end of each year, we will come together again as a partnership day and challenge ourselves. Have we done enough? Did we undertake the actions that we said we would? And what are our new actions? Because there's a change in landscape in substance use, we need to be responsive to what's happening in our communities. So that's why we need to review it annually and really challenge ourselves. So the next stage. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on. I'll stop there then.
Yeah,
I'll
can
stop
I just say thank you for that, Anne Harrod. But on that particular point, I'm just very mindful that within the report, whilst it does give credit to the transformational programme for some improvements, it does stress about the length of time for change, and talking about the time of change of processes, not necessarily culture, because I know that that's much longer. So I think I'm just mindful of the fact that it's saying that we're not moving quick enough. So I think that needs to be very much at the forefront of the APB's mind.
Yeah, I actually would like to just agree with Sharon, but then obviously the way in which you've just presented, obviously about the plan going forward, seems, I know it's thorough, but I think there maybe needs to be a short strategy and a long-term strategy vision on it, because I think that there's, reading the report, I think I would like going forward for us and members to see and have a bit more in-depth knowledge and experience of meeting more staff and clients of the services going forward, because I think this has been such an in-depth report, and sometimes you just don't get it in reading a documentation. You've got to meet people, you've got to see the services, you've got to listen to the feedback ourselves, because at the end of the day, you talk about a lot of frameworks and a lot of policies, and that actually means nothing to the person needing that support on the ground. So I think, where Sharon's concerned, I totally agree with her. It does seem a bit, I don't know.
Can I come back?
Yeah, of course you can.
I did ask a question about health as well. Have we got a representative from health here today?
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Freegard, for the questions. I think they've been really important to ask those questions. As far as health are concerned, the chair of the APB, Marie Davis, was going to attend today. She wanted to, but unfortunately got called away to a Welsh Government meeting, which coincided with this one. So she didn't have a choice but to go to that meeting, I'm afraid. But she wanted me to pass on, if you want her to come before the committee at some point in the future when we review this, she'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, I think that would be a very good idea, Andrew, and also a substitute, perhaps just to give some information out, to just be here would have sufficed as well. I think that's really important when we're talking about collaboration. I mean, at the meeting, that would have been very useful. My other questions are then, you talked about changes of structure, and you may be answering these later on when you talk about implementing the recommendations. But you talked about changing structures, and I was going to say, well, how do we know this as members? Where is this information going? Because you talk about accountability of the APB, who I thought that they were accountable to members, so the information will be coming back to the committees. So if you could just expand on that, because I need to be clear on that for accountability purposes. And you also talked about the outcomes. You just mentioned about monitoring the outcomes. I think it was Anne Harrod. I wonder who is going to monitor, where is that information, where's that data coming to, which committees, and is it going to be going to this a similar committee in Swansea? How are we going to do that? That needs to be really clear, because that is all about the governance and accountability. And you did mention that you have changed some models, and probably you will talk a bit more about that within the recommendations. But I would like that answered. In which way have you already changed some models? That may be the short-term plan that the chair was talking about. Okay, thanks.
And Harrod?
Yep, so in terms of the governance, so we have the APB, and that reports to the community safety partnerships, to the meeting of the joint meeting of the public services boards that happens, but also each organisation is represented in the area planning board and will then take documentations, reports, etc. through their own governance procedures. So, quite rightly, we're here at Scrutiny today, and many of the area planning board, so the annual report will go to Scrutiny, the commissioning in an alliance, so the transformation programme, that again comes through Scrutiny and through committee. So there's a governance framework through which the APB will continue to work and continue to be held to account as Neath Talbot, as a partner in the alliance, but also as an APB itself. You talked about, what is it that we're already doing? And I think that's probably why I had my hand up earlier, in that before the report was finalised, we were still having verbal feedback from the Commission. So we were able to ensure that what we were doing as part of our transformation work was being fuelled by the findings of the Commission as we were going along. So we haven't just stood still and waited for the recommendations. So this is why we've already made quite a significant headway, and there are some things that are happening imminently that will very much support the recommendations. So as Julia mentioned, we are planning to commission in an alliance so that we are integrating a new integrated seamless model for people. So the current service delivery model is that we have multiple services operating across Swansea, Neath, Talbot, delivering substance use services, and we've got a number of commissioners commissioning their own services. As part of the alliance, we are bringing together our funding streams and commissioning a whole system approach for substance use, so that wherever you are, whoever, if you're a person that has been affected by substance use, if you are a family member in the community, you can access support through our one service model. So rather than that disjointed and fragmented approach that is mentioned in the Drug Commission report. So we've already gone a significant way in many of the recommendations. Similarly with our Lived Experience Alliance Forum, at the beginning of the Commission, we were only at the beginning phases of trying to develop our lived experience in panel, and now we have a number of members who are integrated into the work of the Area Planning Board, and we're being informed all the time by their experience and their perspectives on what should be delivered. So I think we've already made significant progress among many of the recommendations, particularly in relation to service delivery. There's still much to do. So I think developing our psychologically informed environments, ensuring we've got the right estates for people, those things are going to take a bit longer because they require us to, potentially look at new buildings and think about that longer term. But as you quite rightly say, there's lots that we've already done and are doing that will be implemented in the short term and our ongoing pieces of work. I'm trying to think if I've missed any of your questions.
That's really good to hear, and that's what I thought you may have already started on that. But it would be good for members to have some kind of model written down about, you talked about the robust and rigorous monitoring, just for us to see the process, if that was clear and succinct for us to see that. I also asked a question about Welsh Government, about their comments.
Yes. So Welsh Government did attend our Area Planning Board Partnership Day. So they are fully aware of the recommendations. They are supportive of our transformation programme. We haven't had a formal response. Julia may have more views on this or more information than I do, but at the moment we have not had a formal response from Welsh Government. But they, as I say, are engaged and did attend the Partnership Development Day, are aware of our plans going forward, and we will be involving them in all of the discussions.
Could I say I am quite surprised, given the depth and the significance of this report, that we haven't yet had a formal response. Are the APB requesting a formal response? Have we requested a formal response? Because I think we need to have that response, obviously, in going forward, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Julia's going to come in.
Yeah. So I was actually sitting next to our Welsh Government representative at the Partnership Day, and because that was the day when the report was formally launched, they then were going to go away and formulate a response back to us. So obviously that was just over 2 weeks ago. So I am, it is imminent. So they have acknowledged that they will respond to the recommendations that are directed to them. in the report, and also on the work that we are doing. They are fully briefed on the work we do. We report to them quarterly. So as Angharad said, we've done a lot since this commission started, and they are aware of our journey and the improvements that we've been making incrementally towards culminating in the launch of this report, and then now further on. So they are, you know, the SMAT team, as they're called in Welsh Government, are fully involved in all of this. Representatives sit on the area planning board too, so you know it is interlinked. So can I also come back on the communication of monitoring progress of our strategy? You know, I take on board what you're saying, and I think in the partnership day we talked a lot about communicating this work and how we will communicate that, and I think a lead action coming from that is for us to develop a communication plan. We'll need to take on board everybody we need to communicate to and how we're going to and what we're going to report. And I think it's an important point you raised there, Councillor, around, you know, what reports go where and what information is shared. And I think it's really important that our progress is reported frequently to our members, to our partners, to our regional partners. So, you know, you will fully be included in all of that, and we can let you know when we know more about how we're going to do that, if that would be helpful.
I think that goes without saying that we need to have that information, but can I also request that this committee has the response from Welsh Government and the plan that you were just talking about. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, moving on from there. Right, one of the things that I'm quite shocked at, and I think people have got to take into account that as members, we are the fresh set of eyes on lots of documents and experiences and that. So sometimes we are your critical friend, I suppose. But what troubles me reading this entire document from Welsh Government down to local level, we did 2025. Drugs have been around for since, you know, the love stages in the 60s. And it's only now, it's like you're looking and reading that there's documents of Welsh governments are 15 years out of date, basically, and they haven't moved with the times. And in part of the report, it's saying about drugs obviously move on, they change, there's new things, and we haven't. We've got comments in the report about like lots of the staff say it's like the norm, it's expected. Now, if staff have actually felt like that, then obviously, you know, the individuals that we support are going to feel that as well. So a bit of me, I can totally see where we're at now, and there's no, you know, we can only learn from the past going forward. But it troubles me that we're in 2025, and I think the message is loud and clear that it was a broken system. And it's like I've always had issues with partnership working sometimes, because sometimes I refer to it as the roundabout with no junctions. And I've said that for many a time. But I really hope that this one has a junction and it's going to lead somewhere. But on that, I think we are going as a committee to be very, very, and make this as one of our priority agenda items going forward, because it does affect and harm a lot of people's lives. I think also in the report as well, the lot of focus is around the poverty and lack of work, homelessness and that. But I think drugs affects everyone. It affects the wealthy of all ages, all backgrounds. And I think that is important as well. And I think that was a key that was also missing out in the report too. So, and I leave that as there, but I just thought it's a bit of an observation. I think it's important to say. So I do look forward to go. But again, anyone, obviously, you know, any of our the individuals watching this back could say, but what's a framework? What's an action plan? What's this? They are only needing the support. And that, I think, is, yes, we could have the long vision of it and to get it right. And that's the biggest thing, is getting this right. So again, you know, sometimes we speak a lingo and language that no one else knows. And I think, you know, especially the general public. So again, I think going forward, the communication is key. And I'm looking forward to that. So in fairness, Chris Williams has been waiting forever and a day. I'm just glad he's on his set here. So I'm just going to bring Chris in a minute. Chris,
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in this report. As probably most of you are aware, I'm currently employed as a support worker in the mental health field. My question is, what are the future plans to improve drop-in centres to encourage an open door policy, and how will these services be promoted?
Can I have a hand up who's answering? Julia and Harad?
Yes,
Julia?
thanks for your question, Councillor Williams. You know, and I think this is a key area that the Commission did highlight around, you know, when they went out and about, they felt that the services were very closed and there were keypads on the doors, and they felt this needed to be improved on. And we are commissioning our new model to make sure that we have open access. That's not only in physical buildings, we're talking about any way someone can access services. So we've asked our commission, the bidding groups, to advise us how they can use innovation to open up access. So that may be online chat, 24-hour support, self-help supported by services. So that, you know, that is widening access. You know, we have free phone numbers now. We want to build on that, and we're looking at integrated hubs where, you know, people can turn up for a wide range of requirements, not just substance use. So that breaks down stigma also. We've asked these things of the bidding group within our tender, so we are hopeful and positive that those things will improve. You know, we want to make sure doors are open and not closed. We want to make friendly environments that support people. You know, when they've come to a decision to attend, it should be accessible. You know, it's a big decision in someone's life. So yeah, I think, you know, those things will hopefully achieve an open door access. But I do think it is important as well to recognise, as Councillor Galsworthy said, you know, it's not only so people who are experiencing poverty or using heroin users that need to access services. You know, we have a wide range of people needing to come into service, not only drugs, but alcohol as well. And we need to make those services accessible at the right times and offering the right support. So, you know, that is clearly top of our list in what we are commissioning. Does that help?
Yes, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good response there, Julia. Because again, it's like the community hubs are valuable, and I must say we had some of the members and the mayor had a great visit, really welcoming to Adfariad a couple of weeks ago as you were there, and I must say it was my first time there, and if it wasn't for such a warm and friendly you know, from the staff, invite from the staff, I thought that the building itself was doom gloom, and it felt as you walk in, it's like claustrophobic, and it was so dark and steep stairs, and it just wasn't a suitable sort of uplifting place on arrival. You know, the building itself, and it's just, thankfully the staff were wonderful. And that lifted the mood as from when you walked in. And I know other members felt exactly the same on feedback there as well. So that's really good. And I think in the report it says about the stigma that people have. And I think, you know, it's lots of these places are out of towns in little back streets and that. And I think community hubs, local libraries, and people should be known for their actual name rather than a user, what sex they are, what background they are. And I think as the culture shift goes forward, that would be a much better, you know, breaking down barriers. It's for people to be known as who they are as individual names rather than a label. So that's it. Anything you want to come back on there, Chris?
Yeah, just to add as well that an important feature of our services is outreach and in reach as well. So not expecting people to turn up at a building. We will take services to people, to their homes, to where they frequent, where other services they go regularly. So, you know, we have asked our providers to make sure they are working on an outreach basis, you know, and addressing people's needs at the time they need them as well. You know, so that is also another important feature about opening up access, and that is the future delivery model that we're aiming for. So that should help with access also.
Great, thanks, Julia. And Harriet, got your hand up? Oh,
Oh,
Rita,
okay.
sorry.
It's fine.
No,
I think I was just
it's
gonna
fine.
I was just gonna come back actually earlier and just say I think we really welcome you know, having councillors as a critical friend and having you involved and coming in to see what we're doing. I think that's really welcome. And also to, you know, to come back to you and share how we're going along in the transformation journey, you know, of our services, of our estates. You know, I think, as we say, this is a bit of an opportunity now for us to really continue to be ambitious and you know, really address the recommendations and make things better for people in our community. So I just welcome your ongoing involvement in this work.
You'll be tired of seeing us soon, then, Harriet.
No, that's important.
Oliver Davis, please. Oh.
Just to follow on.
Sorry, Oliver, let me stop you
Right.
over there.
Put my microphone
Just let me explain. Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to bring Mark Kavanagh in first. Sorry, Mark. We've got in here, it's the lighting and that, so we're not seeing the screens properly. So sorry about that. But Mark, you had your hand up first to come in.
That's no problem, thank you. There was a question earlier on as well about what barriers we foresee in the future in terms of delivering on some of the recommendations. I think from a policing perspective, one of the things I've raised a couple of times with the APB is the legislation, the old outdated legislation that we're dealing with in this country when it comes to misuse of drugs, which is holding us back in terms of being progressive. So things like issuing safer inhalation devices to people so that they don't spread disease amongst each other. So we're talking about crack users in the main here. We can't do it in this country. It's illegal, and that's holding us back. Things like safe consumption, some of the stuff that they're trying up in Scotland, which I know a number of people are really keen to explore here in Wales. Again, we can't do it. And so, despite our ongoing engagements with the Home Office and with ministers, you know, things aren't changing on that front. So, as an APB, we've reflected on that really carefully, and we thought, well, what else can we do to be innovative? What can we do that's different that no other APB in England and Wales is doing? And there's a couple of things which we're already working on, which the Commission report didn't really touch upon in any great depth. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to raise them here. One of them is stigma training. It's something that we've kick-started within South Wales Police, developing a package for frontline workers to help them understand that there is a backstory to substance use. There's a reason why people do fall into a lifestyle of drug use. So what can we do to make sure that frontline workers are more understanding, they're more compassionate, that they really understand people's predicament? I've shared it very informally with colleagues in health, and I think there is a real appetite to turn that into a multi-agency training package for all frontline staff, whether you're a paramedic, a social worker, somebody working in an A&E department. You get the same training no matter what role you're in within Western Bay. So we're in early discussions about taking that forward. And again, I'll emphasise there's no one else in the country doing it. And the second thing is at a very tactical level, we do have a practitioners panel that actively discusses people we deem to be at very high risk of fatal overdose, which is what the Commission report was all about, really, is how do we reduce the drug-related deaths. I don't think it's any coincidence that this year so far, this calendar year, 34 people have lost their lives through drug use in Western Bay. It's 34 people too many. But it is a significant reduction on last year, which was 50, and a significant reduction on the year before that, which was 64. And so what these sort of tactical panels are doing is they're identifying people who could fall into that fatal overdose situation. And we've now got 58 people who form part of that cohort that are getting, really good intensive diversion from practitioners with things like prescribing, looking at their housing situation. Is there something more we can do in terms of making sure they engage better with their caseworker? There's a whole raft of things that can be done practically to help people. So I'm emphasising, that panel has been running now for 18 months, long before the Commission report is published. And I think we've got some really good, talented people working in Western Bay who are already trying to push the boundaries of what we can do. So I just wanted to give you, as a scrutiny panel, some reassurance that we're already, we didn't wait for the Commission report to be published. We've already started doing what we can to do something different and do something progressive.
I must say, Mark, as many times the police don't have enough praise for some of the works they do, such as this. I know they're absolutely fantastic, phenomenal actually, compared to lots of other partners with neurodiverse support within the force as well, and training and that. So I just like to congratulate you there, because I totally welcome that. I think it's a fantastic idea. If I can just go to Sudan.
Sorry,
Oliver,
if I could just say, sorry,
yeah,
Angharad was working with us when we started a lot of this work, and unfortunately the local authority stole her from us, but that's another matter.
I mean, and Harrod, well done to you as well, because you're going to have praise as well, and not just Mark today. So, Oliver, sorry, but you can just wait a minute, if that's all right. But I know you're in a comfy chair as well, because as Mark has come in, there's also questions now to Mark. So I'm going to just take them questions now to Mark. So if I just call in Councillor Patterson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got that. I'll just this is an additional one
for the one from Mark,
because it's come up. Thank you. The report goes on at length about people's lived experience of living with people with drug issues, with neighbours and whatever. And I'm a visitor to this committee, although I do love social services, but it's a question to Mark. Often, when people, I'm going to use the kick off in the residencies, how do you determine when a call comes in from someone that it is not mental health or drugs? Because I know that the police are reticent to sort of put themselves in the mental health guardianship, really, because you say you're not trained to deal with mental health issues. So how do you, when you get a call coming in about antisocial behaviour in a place, determine whether that antisocial behaviour is because of their mental health, drugs, both, or because they're being abused?
Thank you for your question. It's really complex. That's the short answer. It's difficult for frontline officers to make those decisions. If somebody's behaviour is so violent, sometimes custody is clearly the only option on many occasions. But in a situation where things have calmed down and decisions need to be made about what type of support that person needs, in the absence of them being found in possession of drugs or obviously committing any sort of criminal offence, then the preferred option under the sort of right care, right person framework is to make sure that person gets medical attention in the more appropriate setting, which is ideally is not a custody suite. So we work closely with health colleagues. It's discussed extensively on a case-by-case basis in terms of, the facilities that the health service make available to police in terms of taking someone to a place of safety where they can be properly assessed and properly cared for to get to the root cause of what caused that incident. But in many of these cases, inevitably someone will end up in a custody suite because their behaviour, as I say, has been so aggressive that it's the only way of maintaining the peace and investigating what's gone on. But it is certainly a very complex undertaking, and this is where I think when we talk about commissioned services and what the APB are trying to achieve, this is where post-custody is such a crucial time, because that is when, if somebody has committed a criminal offence, it's still important that they in receipt of the right support and diversion and rehabilitation. Otherwise, inevitably, they'll be back in the custody suite again the following day, the following week, the following month. So, it's a very complex situation, but that's as best I can answer it, Councillor.
Thank you. But it does lead on, Chair, to on page 60, 61, 62, that recommendation 8 is meeting people where they are, seeing people for the problems they experience rather than the ones they might cause. And I think of all the services, perhaps the police see the ones that they cause the most. So I'm heartened. So do you actually refer individuals? How does that work if an individual isn't responding and hasn't committed criminal activity? Do you feed in that they are at risk in some way? And who do you send that to?
Yeah, so we've got a process of what we call public protection notices that are completed by officers. They get submitted and they're assessed then by a number of different agencies. So we can flag up and highlight people we feel do need some intervention and some support. We also work with the harm reduction lead from the local authority. Matthew Rafferty does some fantastic work with us. We've actually, given him access to our system so he can see and he can identify individuals that he feels need that, what we call assertive outreach. So rather than putting the onus on the individual to come into services, what Matthew will do is coordinate that assertive outreach. So we go and see that individual and make sure that they get given that right advice, guidance and support. So it comes back to information sharing again. I think by sharing information about individuals, we're causing demands for not just policing, for a number of different agencies, I'm sure. It's just being more coordinated. And it comes back to that panel I talked about earlier on. If you can get different disciplines together to discuss the people that are causing us all collectively this sort of demand, then we're much more likely to come up with some really good, effective options for people to give them the support they need.
Thank you. I do have a question regarding resources, but if you want me to bring that in later.
Bring that later.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just conscious that some have been waiting
course, yeah.
A while, but I'm just going to bring in Anne Harrod because her hand is up. And Ros, before I bring Anne Harrod in, is yours in regards to Mark's responses, or is it just a separate question?
And not particularly, but I was going to ask something similar. But I'm just wondering, how good is the access to services in more rural areas across the authority? Is there better accesses in towns rather than in rural areas, in villages?
So shall I? So I was just.
If you answered both questions with your response to Mark, then Anne Harrod, if you can, yeah.
Okay, I'll
Put
wrap
it all
them in one.
Put it
all in one. Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, just in terms of just to add to what Mark was saying. So what we have at the moment and what we're commissioning, what is fundamental is that we have a whole system approach to people. So if someone comes into a police custody suite, they have a contact with policing, the first sort of approach is, well, what support does the person need, and can we divert them into that appropriate support? So we've got our commission substance use services, that trauma-informed, trauma-enhanced substance use assessment and triage happening at the earliest point of that police contact, with resources in the police custody suite, so that person can be assessed and then they can be referred into support and treatment at the earliest point. And that could be psychosocial support, it could be that they require a prescribing element, or it could be both, or it could be just advice and assistance. So that's really important. That flows into the court system. So if the person does require an assessment at a court stage for a potential community order, or it could be whatever type of community order or prison, for example, they'll be assessed there also to see how their substance use or mental well-being or a number of other factors are impeding or contributing to their offending behaviour. And therefore, again, that's another opportunity to have an alcohol treatment requirement or a drug treatment requirement. So something that is supporting them in terms of a treatment requirement that's related to that need. And then again, into the prison. So it's really important that if people are within a prison environment, they still get that assessment and support that enables them to be released safely back into the community. So I just wanted to add there to what Mark was saying around those opportunities to support people wherever they are, whether that be in the community, whether that be experiencing a criminal justice requirement. So that's all part of our commission service. In relation to the accessibility of services. So, you're absolutely right, Rosalind, to Councillor Davis, to talk about, that rural access to services. That is an issue that we are concerned about and have actively advised in our new specification that we expect providers to provide services that are accessible and are there for rural communities. So we've asked them to be innovative. And as I talked about earlier, there's that assertive outreach element. So we want our services to be in community hubs. We want services to be going out there into communities. We don't want people to just have to access sites that are central. So that will all be part of our estates planning processes going forward. So thinking about where our sites are, we really want that sort of hub and spoke model. So there might be that central hub, but there's also lots of access across communities. That includes our rural communities. So that is also fundamental. So I hope I've wrapped it all up in the one there.
I think you've done a splendid job on Harald. Rosalind, do you want to come back before I bring Oliver in?
No, that's fine, and hopefully there'll be hubs in many rural areas in the future.
Yeah. Oh, Julia, sorry, I didn't see you.
Sorry.
You just want to add something?
Yes, I do. And I think a key part of us improving our services is to bring on our primary care partners. So GPs have an integral part to play in substance use treatment and support. I think every community should have a GP or a pharmacist close by, and a person should be able to go there to access the treatment they need for whatever condition or whatever ailment or issue they have. So that is very important and is at the forefront of our model. And we are working with experts across Wales who've implemented similar GP shared care schemes, as they're called, to bring their knowledge to us, to help us engage with our GPs and bring them on board. So that's really important. So that should open up access in rural communities. And I just wanted also, while I've got the mic, come back on what Mark was saying around the importance of information sharing. And I think, we all work together in partnership, but we often do have silos in relation to the information we keep. So we do have several forums, especially in linking with the police and criminal justice, which enables us to share information through protocols that we've set up. And we have been recognised by Welsh Government as best practice as an APB across Wales for our information sharing, especially around non-fatals and near misses. So when someone has a near miss or has an overdose, accidental overdose, we have live information that our case review coordinator in the team has access to police data. We have a 72-hour protocol, which means they will get a welfare check by a recognised partner, either a service or by the police, to check up that they're okay, to ask them, give them some brief information and invite them into service if need be. So we are the only APB in Wales that does that. So, there is some good practice that we should be proud of. And I think our information sharing is probably really good compared to lots of other areas. So I just wanted to explain that to you as well.
Oh, thanks, Jo. Oliver, are you ready, Oliver?
Thank you, Chair. Well, to be honest, that bit of delay has brought up another question I'm going to ask anyway, so there'll be two questions. So it's worked out fine as it stands.
It's perfect timing.
Yeah. Right, first I'm going to ask, which was brought to attention of Julia and yourself earlier, is about the oppressive buildings like you got at Fariad. Now, if I was applying for a job within the service and I was taken for an interview somewhere like Adfariad or even starting training at Adfariad, that building is so oppressive I probably wouldn't continue with the job. What is the staff well-being and sickness? Because I can imagine if I was working there for 6 months I'd need time off because the building is so oppressive. You'd end up as bad as the people who were trying to help. So that's the first question. Following on the other one, which when I was delayed, when Mark was saying about if somebody's arrested and you can signpost to the correct people and thing, is that service for signposting 24/7? Because various parts of the report state that the drug abuse system is sort of Monday to Friday. There's no cover on weekends and things like that. What would happen if somebody's arrested at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning? Is there somebody to signpost for a drug problem? Or do you have to wait until the Monday 9 o'clock?
Do you want me to come in and answer that second question first? Or? Okay, on that last question, Councillor, it is a really good point. And inevitably, what a lot of the drug services will do, they'll come into the custody suites to see people whilst they're in detention, and that will normally happen in the mornings. So if somebody comes in late at night, they're kept in for a number of hours, and then they're given the opportunity to see a nurse, and then they're given the opportunity to speak to a drugs worker then within the custody suite. But what that doesn't deal with is the scenario that was raised earlier on where, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody does come to police attention. They're not necessarily in need of being arrested, but they do need some help. And that's the gap that does need to be filled. And that's what I know Angharad is really working towards as part of the alliance model, where we're looking to have services that are capable of dealing with somebody, regardless of what time or what day of the week that they need that help. And that is the clear target that we're aiming towards for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Julia? Oh, yes, sorry, Julia and Harad.
We're a double act. We're a double act. So yeah, following on, Mark's explained it really clearly. Yes, absolutely. What we're working towards is the ability to have that 24-hour, 7-day-a-week response, that open access, that accessibility. So these are all features of the, I feel like I keep repeating it, but it is all fundamental to our new model and the whole transformation of services going forward, because we know, not everything happens 9 to 5 to people. They don't always, happen. They need support outside of those kind of working hours, which are kind of historical, commission services have operated within. And I guess in relation to the buildings. So as we're commissioning a new service model and new service, there will be, it will be buildings that will be part of that new offer. So we'll be working with the providers, the bidding groups that are trying to deliver the new service model. And we've asked them, tell us what your new psychologically informed buildings, how they will be open, how they will ensure accessibility. So all of that is really fundamental to the new service model. But I think we also have to recognise there are challenges, and that, with moving any new building, for example, there's a bit of time and structure and support that's needed around that. So it's not always quick to have a new building open. So that does sometimes take a little bit of time for that to happen. What we do have is the ability to access capital estates as part of, so there's capital funding from Welsh Government that is for estates for substance use. We access that funding, and we'll continue to think strategically about how we apply that funding. And I think we have some opportunities actually to work with our regional partnership board to think about how we can look at estates across the region, and think about how we're offering, as I say, those health hubs, so that people can access multiple services, maybe not just substance use services. It could be a range of services. But I think you're quite right. We do have to review all of the buildings that we've got. We hope that our new bidding group will bring some new interest in innovative opportunities with their buildings. And that is all part of our new approach going forward.
Thank you, Angharad. Brilliant. Lisa, I did notice that you had your hand up and you put it down. Is there anything you want to say?
Just to add really in terms of what Mark has already mentioned around some of the work that goes on within the police custody suites, but also in terms of sort of the oppressive buildings, having worked across many drug and alcohol services across Wales in a whole variety of buildings, I think fundamentally that warm welcome from staff is so critical and key. So as part of our commission service, you know, there is a lot of focus around how we ensure, you know, an adequately skilled and equipped workforce, that there is good workforce support available within the commission services to ensure that whilst there's that longer term work around buildings that we'll all be looking at and exploring, you know, in the here and now, no matter what building people access or how they go about accessing it, we can feel confident that they are greeted with a warm welcome and a smile. And I think that's something we can continue to work on sort of very much in the here and now.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Julia, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on the point of our workforce. And I think in the report, it does, you know, mention that they were burnt out, they were, you know, high levels of sickness. And we recognise the challenges that working in this kind of environment brings. And when we've spoken about trauma-informed care for people who use our services, it's also for people who work on the front line. And just to make sure that we are developing and supporting our workforce as we need to. And I think when we review drug-related deaths and make recommendations, a lot of the time it's around providing adequate supervision for people to make sure they're supported and they have the skills they need to manage complex cases. So we've already started work on that with our existing providers around monitoring how often they do supervision, what does it entail, providing some templates to support our providers to make sure that staff are supported and are fully skilled to be able to deal with what they need to on a regular basis. And we will be asking our new model providers to deliver robust workforce development plans. So that's something that we will be looking at as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I think it would be wrong of me if I didn't actually mention neurodiverse, as there's not many meetings I don't mention it. And what was interesting in all of the documentation, until you got to recommendations, there was nothing mentioned about neurodivergence. Now, obviously, in the last couple of years now, lots of evidence and data is showing the connections, you know, between obviously behaviour within the prison service and everything else. And it one of the biggest things there is about individuals, especially undiagnosed neurodivergence, self-medicate. And again, I think a lot of this report has gone on about trauma and that. And even though I think sometimes someone with a neurodiverse condition can be traumatized with just everyday life, and I take that on board totally, from paying bills, it can link to homelessness because of all that is so overwhelming. But again, the linkage, I haven't seen any linkage down to obviously those users basically self-medicating and linking it to potential, because sometimes, you know, the biggest barrier for them is just understanding themselves. And I think that is something that I will be looking at pushing forward in the links there. And also it's the prison and the justice service as well, because there's great links there with obviously domestic abuse. You know, it's an underlying problem a lot of places, and waiting lists are massive. And that's the other issue in here as well, is top with the mental health. But again, if you look at the current state of the mental health support services across you know, the country, basically, it's not in a good place now. So again, it was mentioned a few times in the report about, you know, mental health support and that. And again, you know, as Sharon said in a discussion we had, it's like sometimes we need to get our infrastructures right across the board with health and everything, not just drugs and alcohol, but across the board. So we've got the infrastructure there, which we need a bit of a reset button on, sometimes for new proper systems that actually work in place, rather than you know, just shooting every single time, every day, rather than that long-term vision. So just wanted to basically ask the question, going forward, is obviously they're going to be work on the linking and with the neurodiverse also in it. Who's answering that one then? Andrew, I'll pull you in because you've been, you've been quiet there now for a bit.
I did put my hand up. I don't know if
Thanks,
it's
Sarah.
showing
Oh,
on.
you?
Yeah,
Sorry,
my hand.
fancy no yellow.
My hands
Yeah,
went
maybe
up.
just wave to us.
Wave,
Go
yeah,
on then,
sorry.
Anna.
So I completely, completely agree. There's there's studies out there that absolutely reflect, as you said, individuals. Sometimes I think there's one study where if you have autism, that it's potentially 4 times more likely to be involved in alcohol or drug use as a self-medication and as a coping mechanism. And I think it's really important that as part of the model and the support for people, that neurodivergence is absolutely the support, the assessment, the support, and also that there's recognition that we need a tailored approach as well, and that there's that part of what we're talking about is that assertive outreach, that we remove where there are potential social exclusion, and I think we raised it as part of the presentation we did at the partnership day, because it is important that we raise the profile of this and the disproportionate impact on neurodiverse individuals. But I think a big part of this is that trauma-informed inclusive services, that we enable that access, but also that our staff and commission services are trained in neurodiversity. So part of the work that we've already started to do is around our potential opportunities to get that psychology input into our services, that gives us that specialist knowledge and experience, and that is accessible. So I think there's still lots of work to do on it, but I absolutely support your point, and it will be a fundamental part of the strategy and actions going forward. But yeah, some of the things around training and access for people is going to be key, I think.
Right, thank you. Before I bring Suzanne in, another question I have as well is, obviously this all came about because of obviously the death statistics, and we were high and that, but these statistics are only based on overdoses. And what I'm keen to actually know and looking into a bit further is the deaths related to drug abuse by suicide, because obviously whether or not some people have gone, they've missed their appointments, they haven't been able to get the meds, and further on down the line, obviously it's affected their mental health and they've taken their own life, sadly. So I'm fully aware of one of my own residents recently have done that. So again, it's something that I'd like to know more about. Is this obviously being looked into in some way? And obviously link it, because I think it's a really important factor in these, because deaths in regards to drugs is not just a fatal overdose. I think there's a lot more tragedies out there which are linked to death. So I don't know, would Julia see your hand up?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I know we've spoken about this before, Councillor Galsworthy, but we do have within social services a mechanism for looking at and reviewing suicide. So that goes ahead, and separately, the Area Planning Board review drug-related or suspected drug-related death when it comes from an illicit substance. So we do have our own remit and guidelines around that. And then there's the remit that goes on in reviewing suicide. What there is crossover between those two groups. So if during the suicide review, it comes to light that someone was struggling with substance use, and that hasn't been deemed the nature and cause of their death, but played a part in, that review pulls in services and also pulls in officers from the APB team to make those links. So if anything comes out of that review, we can then take it forward with our providers, and we are linking up our reviewing and our recommendations and our lessons learned from that. So, I think there is a lot for us to do, but we do have those links already there. I don't know if that helps you at all in understanding what goes on.
Yeah, but again, this report, I think, like as you're saying about bringing all partners and all services in a one-stop shop sort of approach. I think sometimes there's some key information that should be working together. So again, if the stats of the deaths by overdose, and then I'd like to see a stat next to it on obviously suicide or linked to death on it as well, because to me that should be in the same report, because it's a link and it's to do with death related.
Yeah. We can work with our colleagues to provide that information and see what that looks like. Yeah, I'll take that away and have a look at that for you. No problem.
Oh, great. If I can bring Lisa Shipton in.
Anghara did have her hand up first. I know you can't see, but Anghara, do you want me to jump in or do you want to go?
Go on, Lisa, you jump in, it's fine. Go
Just
on.
a very brief point from me around this. I think in terms of opportunities for join up and link, I think there is considerable work for us to do as an area planning board more locally, but also opportunities where we can feed into the work of other boards, either on a local, regional or national level. So Welsh Government have published their suicide prevention and self-harm delivery plan for the next 3 years. As part of that plan, it does make reference to looking at in terms of support for those with substance misuse issues. So again, I think there are wider opportunities, not only for us in terms of the direct work for us as a Western Bay Area Planning Board, but where we can take learning, where we can have that join up and that linkage with other strategies, other delivery plans in terms of not everyone trying to do everything, but finding those opportunities, as I say, for linkage. I'm aware that delivery plan has only been published earlier this year, but hopefully that might provide some opportunities and learning for us to look at as well.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And Hannah, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Area Planning Board has also invested in a data and information officer. So we do have the opportunity now, I think, to really develop our ability to, overlay data from across, because I think that's what we're talking about here, is really, take it a step further and think about the opportunities for utilising data to understand trends, patterns, and therefore how we can respond better and learn. So I think that I just wanted to put that in there, that is an opportunity. We do have a specific role now with the skills and expertise to do all the clever things with data that we need to do to inform us.
So I'm just thinking then, obviously, on the back of a data officer, going forward, that the members and the public can be kept informed a lot better with good local data statistics, which I think is key. Yeah, and Harrod?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as part of the communications aspect, I think it's a fundamental point that we're able to share what we're doing. So we've got an APB website now, so that's everything is accessible to partners, to the public. So we'll be sharing our data, our plans very openly and transparently on the APB website as well.
Hey, Julia?
Yeah, and just to add to that,
you are like a double act, didn't you?
Yeah, we do bounce off each other. It's been a long journey. Councillor Galsworth, we're used to it. So basically, as well, I know you last year you received and scrutinised the 23-24 Area Planning Board annual report. So that is a public document. So that does come out annually. And the 24-25 one is imminent. So that is a way of sharing our data, our progress, barriers, issues, what we're working on publicly. So that is a public facing document. So that will also be published annually on our new website too. So that's a way of telling people what we're doing, really. So yeah, that's really helpful, I think.
Okay, great. And sorry, Suzanne, before I bring you in, because this is your question is related, yeah?
It is related,
yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
I bring in Councillor Allen. Llywelyn.
Yeah, it's just an observation really that one of the things which was quite striking, obviously the critical incident, the declaration of critical incident, and you know the high figures being recorded in Swansea Neath Talbot, Western Bay as its term for this purpose, isn't it? You know, was part of the reason for commissioning the work of the commission and the report. Now, when we started looking at these, it's not that evidence that the area is such an outlier as it might have seemed at the beginning, because there are different ways in which the data is collected across different parts of Wales. So, I mean, what was obviously the case was that it was still a huge cause for concern, and the figures were too high. Far too high, but we've heard, from Mark Kavanagh this morning now about, how some of those figures have started to change, and hopefully that's a longer term permanent trend. But I think it is important, the point that you raised, Chair, about being able to put together the different sorts of harms that have led to drug-related or substance-related deaths. So the work of the new data analysis is going to be key in that, I think, both in terms of trying to ensure the accuracy of reporting, because we did pick up along the way as well that there are inconsistencies in the way the coroner services record causes of deaths as well, or the potential impact of substances in those deaths. So improving the data and consistency of data is going to be very important, both in terms of the accuracy of the information, but also in informing how services need to be adapted and improved and tailored to meet the need. So it is a key part really, and there is a lot of progress in the APB on this particular issue of data analysis.
Yeah. Something that's just coming to me now, and as I'm looking directly at Mark, I can't find it in the actual page now, but it is in there somewhere, and I've actually been told this as well, is that on times if someone have missed and Harrod and anyone can actually confirm if I'm wrong, but if for instance they've missed an appointment for like treatment, then they sometimes have been told to go out and use illegal drugs so that they can then go and get back onto the programme. So I don't know if someone can basically confirm that. In the report, it's something illegal, but I can't see that. Don't know. Shule, do you want to come in?
I think it's the bit.
Or have I read it wrong?
I think off the top of my head, if memory serves me correctly, I think it's around the fact that they said something along the lines, some people felt that it was easier to access substance use services in the criminal justice system. Is that the bit you're referring to? Because that's what rings a bell in my head when you mentioned it.
I think it was an NDA. They didn't attend, and then the only way they could get back on the medication that they were was obviously, if that's how it works, if they come off for so long, obviously they obviously use again to get back onto the meds that they were on. Does that make sense to anyone?
Yeah, I think that was something which was expressed by a service user. I think I can't remember what it is in the report now, but this is something, because obviously a lot of the evidence was collected from people who have direct experience of services. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a general reflection of the services, but obviously we have to listen very carefully to people say that is their experience, and I think that as a general part of the response to the commission, this issue of looking at the way that people can access the range of services without obstacles, and that was come up this morning a number of times, isn't it? Is going to be a key part of taking things forward, and I think as Julia mentioned earlier, but something was very much picked up in the partnership day, about the role of primary care, etc. You know, so that we're making sure that people can access services as easily as possible. You know, huge resource implications, obviously, but you know, that is a very, very important step forward to try and achieve that.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong in the sense of being told, but that's the only way maybe that they can get back onto the program is obviously by going out and using again. So that it was something in the report, basically it was illegally or something was basically put on there, but never mind, I can't find it right now, so we'll move on. And Harriet?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, the transformation of services isn't just in terms of the commission services, it's also in relation to the clinical and prescribing pathways for people, because I think that's the point really, is it's around that accessibility, that engagement, and that support for people who require a clinical treatment response. So, you know, in terms of our health board colleagues, we're working very closely with them to ensure that the approach that we've got provides a rapid access prescribing for people, that they can access that support via GP shared care services, and that the approach that we take is around that assertive engagement. So people are brought into services to obtain that clinical support, and that we try to make sure that people aren't dropping in and out of services. So we really need to, you know, again, design our services, our clinical services, with people, so that, you know, they're not dropped out, or we don't lose them from that clinical and psychosocial support that go hand in hand. So I think, you know, it isn't just about redesigning the psychosocial support, it is also about making sure the clinical health board services that people need are there throughout their journey, and that perception isn't there. It's really important that people who, you know, are trying to access that clinical treatment get it and have it at the earliest possible point. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, and I have found it. It's on page 36 of the document. It's basically giving an example of a user that he was stable on his medication and then he had to switch to another service who wouldn't prescribe what he had been on. This resulted in the individual using Elicity to get back into the first service and back onto the preferred prescription that he'd been working for him. So I did find it.
And I think that's exactly it, isn't it? It's that disjointed system with lots of prescribing options. You know, what we want people to do is to come in to the one service and then to receive the prescription or the clinical support that they need, and we're trying to again reduce that jumping between services as part of that that whole system approach that we've talked about.
Okay, Julia?
Yeah, just building on that, the new system will, when someone comes in, regardless of where they're coming from, criminal justice or in the community, they'll come through one front door. They'll have a key worker who will lead them through that journey, whether that will be to go to an appointment with the health board or not. And then really that key worker will be taking hold of that person and guiding them through all of their medical appointments, all of their psychosocial appointments. So there's less opportunity for people to drop off and be pushed between services because there's only one. So I think, you know, that we have recognised, and I think when that was written in the report, that was a moment in time. We have moved on from that even since then. So our services are a little bit less disjointed than they were, but we're aiming for one holistic service. So that's the plan. So hopefully less dropout points for people.
Right, okay. Just bear with me, I'm just thinking a minute because there's I want to take a bit of advice, so I don't know whether I have a 2-minute break a minute before I go, and obviously I'm a bit aware of time that we've been in here as well, a bit of a comfort break. So Andrew, I'm going to phone you in 2 minutes and I'm just going to take a little comfort break a minute. Literally, so I'll be back in 5 minutes, everyone, if that's okay.
Thank you.
I need to cut it.
You don't think no, Shannon.
Oh.
Is everyone back? Can you put your cameras on for me to see that you're back? Yeah, I'll be waiting for you, yeah, so thank you for that. Right, okay. Right, okay, to take a bit of advice, Nat, in what we've actually seen and heard today now, what the plan was, obviously, it was where I would have gone and asked staff to go through the recommendations, what work they've done today, what the action plan and that going forward is. But I think we're a bit too early on that as yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish up the questions we've got. If there's anything then that anyone wants to add, any of you, more than welcome to, before we finish. Then I'm going to ask Alan just to say a few words on his experience as in being a member of the commission. And then we are looking at another meeting coming back in March, whereas then officers now can give an update on each of the recommendations as to what we do and go forward. Yeah. So then what we'll do is in the meantime, we'll have discussions with Swansea Council as well, and we'll take advice on it, as in how is the best way for members to have that political support, critical friend going forward into how obviously the strategy and that then gets implemented and going forward like that. So whether it's a task and finish group or something like that, or there's an alternative mechanism as part of the APP, that's what we'll explore as well. And obviously that then we'll have that feedback at the next meeting. So rather than wasting any more time now, I'm going to go on to Councillor Patterson for the questions as well. And I know that obviously Councillor Freegard had got questions that weren't answered previously. So again, over to you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to substitute today. I always like to pop into social services every now and again. It's a pulls at my heartstrings.
The best committee.
Yeah, I do enjoy social services, and it allows me to lead into how excellent I believe our staff are.
Yeah.
I don't see them very often, like week to week, month to month, because I'm not on the committee. However, Andrew, you should be immensely proud of your team. They all seem so enthusiastic and willing to go the extra mile. We have in local authority a great history of that because of our budgetary situation. We always have to make something out of nothing, and you know, so far we've done it. But a lot of what's in the report, it seems to me the elephant in the room is how are we going to pay for it? And with your indulgence, Chair, is what funding implications arise from the report's recommendations, and are additional resources required? I'm going to add to that is, are there opportunities to budget share or pool resources? And that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Yes. Yeah. I'll come in on this one. So absolutely. You know, as we've said, the APB is embarking on transformation of services, and that does bring together a range of funding from across the partnership and Welsh Government to ensure that we're able to have that whole system approach. So currently, the budget from it comes across from all of the partners of the APB and from Welsh Government Substance Misuse Action Fund monies is approximately in the region of 9 million per annum. So that is the current funding that we have available to us in this area to be able to fund services. So we do have already that funding in place. We will have our budget for next year confirmed by Welsh Government in December time, and that will enable us then to apportion funding for our region. I think as you rightly say, public purse, is tight. So we do have to think about efficiency and effectiveness of services, and align that with the quality of services that we want. It's really important that we have those quality of services, and therefore that's why it's important that we join our funding, we pool our budgets together, and we commission that whole system approach so that we're able to make those efficiencies of scale savings, so we can share our estates, so that training across the respective staffing groups again is shared. So there is an opportunity here to be transformative, but obviously it has to be within our financial constraints and allocated funding. We will actively, as an area planning board, seek opportunities to increase our funding. So if there are opportunities, for example, we have, as I said, been successful in having our HSG funding come into the Alliance. So again, commissioning that housing element together. Welsh Government also provide funding for complex needs funding. So again, that supports our co-occurring opportunities as part of the model. And as I've said, we do also receive capital funding from Welsh Government to support with our buildings. But going forward, I think it's really important that we think about the opportunities for funding with our regional partnership board, think about how we can join capital funding together, for example, so that we can get buildings that are for our well-being of our communities, and communities can access multiple services there. So that's a sort of summary of where we are. Could we, would we, want extra funding, additional funding? Of course, we would always want additional funding, but at the moment that's the state of play in terms of where we are. If we do have, as an APB, financial constraints concerns, then it's escalated to Welsh Government. Welsh Government sign off on our expenditure plans. Those expenditure plans are done collaboratively in the area planning board, and as I say, are signed off and agreed by Welsh Government as well. So that's a sort of summary of the funding, of where we are and going forward. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great help. However, a long time ago, I was a member of the Fire Authority, and even then we were talking about sharing buildings. They have to have offices in rural areas, to answer Ros's question. Is it possible? And they're not in our safety as in drug safety, but they are in our safety as in community safety. So are we going out to make every available building accessible to all, really, basically? We including things like that?
Julia?
Yeah, so the fire service, as an example, are a partner in the APB. So we do have discussions around that. We're always open to any buildings that have capacity to bring services in, whether that's seven days a week or whether they are sessions throughout the week in different communities. We're always open to having those discussions, and we've got the right people around the table, not only in the area planning board, but wider with our within our governance, to the regional partnership boards, to the community safety partnerships, and to wider than that within the health board as well. So we those conversations are happening, and we're always looking as well to realise savings along the way, because at the moment, we're looking at value for money, and we've got lots of services duplicating at the moment because of the way we inherited them. So long term, over the 10 years of this contract, we will be looking to realise efficiencies whilst keeping the quality, at the foremost, really. So we're looking at how we allocate resources to the best possible, in the best possible way, really. There's not an ever-ending pot of money. We are at the mercy of Welsh Government to provide the majority of the funding. So, we are always working with them and letting them know when we are facing difficulties and what areas we could do with boosting our funding in. So it is a partnership in that, in its fullest, really. And having a shared pot of funding will only benefit. So we haven't had that before. This is something new, so that will only benefit, you know, the type of work you're talking about there, I think.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think it's incumbent on us as partners with our officers to do the lobbying.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of our job, so we shall be doing that. But thank you for your answer. Thank you.
I'm conscious about obviously the time of taking. So obviously there's some councillors have gone now for obviously work things obviously. So some of the questions there was is there any volunteering or work schemes available? Because I think that question came about as in giving individuals a sense of purpose to get up in the mornings, to obviously go. So again, as you say, it's that stigma of drug use and that, and you know, so again, I know Chris Williams mentioned earlier on, one of his clients goes to Advariad and they have like workshops on music and things like that. A lot of that wasn't actually explained much in the report itself about all the additional work of support that goes on. And I think that's quite important for us to see actually. But again, it's in silos, you know, it's like obviously I'd much prefer them to be participating in a community hub environment within the community, to be known as who they are as you know, John or Christopher or Rian or Sian, rather than, you know, away in a depressed building as we spoke about earlier. So again, is there any sort of big opportunity, the volunteering and any sort of work schemes that, you know, does workways and things like that actually link in with yourselves? So that's that question. And the other question then was from Ellen Kelly-Clark, who couldn't be with us today. How closely does our safeguarding team work with drug and alcohol partners? Has there been any feedback on them, any action and the concerns? What's the process basically between any concerns raised by the partners to ourselves on that as well? Then the final question of the day, unless anyone else comes in. Oh, Sharon wants to come in, so I'm not the final. What measures will be taken to reduce waiting times for treatment, particularly for opioid substitution therapy, and move towards same-day prescribing as recommended? That last question I know will be on Harrod. And Julia, are you going to answer the others?
Yeah, I can attempt to answer them. So about the voluntary opportunities and employment opportunities, yes, our services, our treatment services do offer opportunities for people engaged in services to volunteer. But as you said, it's wider than that. You know, why should they only be volunteering within substance use services? So, you know, there are multiple opportunities in communities to volunteer. And I think the work of our local area coordinators is important here. So linking people in with community, making those strong links, you know, going to dog walking, going to knitting, going to crafts, that's all part of someone's recovery. So structured treatment, yes. What they do to fill their time when they're not thinking about taking drugs or drinking is most important to have a fulfillment in life and keep on going in their path and recovery. So we have been working with our providers to make those links with local area communities, to make links with groups that are going on, so you know, people can become involved. There are formal volunteering opportunities within our services, so you can sign up, have the training to go and work with people within treatment services. And also, people with lived experience have really enjoyed being part of our LEAF forum. So they've told us it's given them a sense of purpose. They love what it gives them, a break in the normality, you know, speaking to different types of people, learning new skills. You know, they've been to national meetings. It's really, really enhanced their lives. So we want to take that forward and, you know, a co-production in its truest sense, with people being really involved with all of the work, is what we're working towards. We're also linking in with the Department of Work and Pensions around what they've got to offer in relation to training and employability. So, you know, these links are made as as part of the alliance, so we're going to build on those. So it is a very important point you raise. Aside of just treatment, you know, it's quality of life for people in its truest form here. So yeah, definitely part of the work we're doing.
Okay, thanks for that, Julia. And I'm having a pick in, but if you can, we might have a problem in a couple of minutes, because just come on screen that the TV's going to be switched off in 5 minutes. So I don't think we've had that before, but she's got the standby button just in case, okay? So if I go now to Anharad, please, and then I'm going to bring Sharon in.
Yep. In terms of the same day prescribing element, so we piloted the rapid access prescribing pilot, which sort of does exactly what it says on the tin, really. It's about assertive outreach, getting people into support and attempting to prescribe them on the very same day. So that is part of our whole new model. So we've piloted it, we've tested it, we've learned from it, and that is part of our new model and specification. Now, in order to do that, obviously, we need to look at what are the resources involved, and we've been working with the health board to determine, you know, to the absolute detail. So we've done a number of workshops on this. We've had feedback from people with lived experience, and we've looked to the experience of other areas who deliver rapid access prescribing and to the experts in those areas. So we are in the process of defining the staffing and the funding and the requirements to enable us to develop that rapid access prescribing, which will have an impact on waiting times. So that is in train, and our health board colleagues will be leading on that with our support also. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Right, just going to bring in Sharon before I bring in Alan.
Before the telly goes off.
Yeah, for the telly goes off.
That has to be so.
I'm sure my questions would have been answered if we'd gone into the recommendations, but just to go back to the report, obviously the successful outcome of the recommendations from the Commission rely heavily upon the resources that we're able to put in. And going back to the funding issue, which Suzanne mentioned as well. When we have the report, can you make sure that we've got the costings, that all the changes are going to that we need are going to be in that report, so that we take a more proactive stance rather than a reactionary one with Welsh Government in terms of the budgets? I know that we will be having the next budget coming up in the new year, and both Swansea and ourselves are obviously strapped for cash in the budgets. So we need to know what proportion that Welsh Government need to make, rather than us waiting for a couple of months along the line before going back to Welsh Government, say we haven't got enough money. So I would like to know exactly how much all these costings will be and what proportion Welsh Government are paying towards it, because all well and good saying we need this and that, we need to fund it for it to be able to be successful. The other thing is about the obstacles. I know that Mark mentioned about legislation, and clearly lobbying needs to be going on about that legislation, Mark, to make life easier. If there's something more efficient or effective that we can do, we need to be doing it. But obviously a key role here is Welsh Government. So within the next report, I'd like to know what challenges, apart from legislation, and I can see that a huge one is data sharing, and we need to address them rather than, you know, it's all very woolly, but we need to drill down, because the drilling down is obviously going to be a key to the success. So that's the end for me. Thank you.
Right, I think we've solved the problem. I think it's like the standby on your TV at home.
Not too long.
So I think we've actually done that, but I am conscious you've got meetings as well. Yeah. So I can't see any hands up. Who's going to answer Sharon's question? So can someone come in?
Yeah, I can come in.
And
So
Harad?
I feel like it was a sort of ask really from us, which you know is quite right. So I think we just need the time now really to work on that and to provide you with the information that you've requested and the detail really. So we will commit to doing that and come back to you with that detail.
I'm sure that's and I'm sure that Swansea would be asking the same thing. So rather than duplicate things, it will be easy to give the same information to both.
Absolutely, and you know, if there's an opportunity to have a joint scrutiny or a joint meeting, whatever councillors feel would be most beneficial, it would certainly support us to do it in the whole and to do it once and to share, given that it's regional, and if that is an ask, I'd obviously enable that and support that in any way.
That would be very useful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to bring Alan in now.
Yeah, diolch, Cadeirydd. Thanks, Chair. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible.
Oh, I'll put you on standby.
Yes, you've got the remote control flowing this with it. I think that, thanks for this morning's session. Very important, and the fact that we'll have a follow-up in some months' time to look at progress. And I think more than anything, the work of the Commission needed to be a catalyst for change. And I think we've heard this morning how that change has already started, but also the many challenges that are ahead. And the report does refer to several examples of good practice in our teams and services here in Neath Talbot. And as Suzanne mentioned earlier, we've drawn today on the knowledge and commitment of our officers that are with us in this session. On a personal level, I've learned so much by being part of the Drugs Commission. I've been involved in working with and supporting people with complex housing and support needs for over 30 years, not just as a councillor, but previously professionally as a housing association officer and director. But the work of the Commission has focused on the experience of people of all ages who are using substances or recovering from the effects of substance use. And we spoke with the users of the service, their families, and they spoke directly with us. And we've also spoken with many dedicated frontline workers and volunteers. We were grateful to them for sharing so much with us. There are huge challenges for all organisations, whether they're health boards, councils, criminal justice authorities, the police that work in this field. And for us in Swansea, Neath Talbot or Western Bay, we've got lessons to learn from the years when we were at the long end of the figures of harm and deaths from substance use. And I feel the work of the Commission and the responses to the issues by conscientious officers and members of all the agencies and authorities is beginning to make a difference. But there is so much more that we can do. So I'm pleased that Scrutiny has said that the focus will continue on this in future meetings and the information that's being requested. So
yeah, and I've got to be honest, there hasn't been a question that you haven't been able to answer. You might have been delayed a bit to Sharon's, but she gave you too many, obviously. But got to be honest, done an excellent job, everyone else today. I'm looking forward to working closely with you going forward with this committee. And what we'll do now is we've looked at the forward work programme. We take into account, obviously, Christmas is coming. And it's the workload we've already got scheduled in, obviously, the future meetings. And it's about giving you a bit more time now to get it right, because I think we much prefer you to have a bit of meat on the bone rather than not in the next meeting. So that's why we've actually put it in for March. And I think that's the close of business today for us. And I thank everyone for coming. Oh, sorry. How foolish was me. Okay. Right, okay. I've got to say these words. This report is for noting And agenda item 4, urgent items. I have none, so close of meeting. Thank you all for coming. See you soon.
Thank you, Chair.